Alright, so we're asked to simplify this fraction, and you note there's only one term in the denominator, so you can use this property that if you have a plus b over c, you can split each of them. So that's one thing we could do. And there's a couple other things to notice. I have a square root of a negative number. We want to write that without a negative into the square root, which will be square root of 15i. And we also see we have a complex number and a pure imaginary number in the denominator. We don't ever leave any fractions with imaginary numbers in the denominator. So let's begin by splitting up the numerator here. So I'm going to have 3 over negative 6i. So 3 over negative 6i. And then I'm going to have a minus, and I'm going to write this as plus and negative. Okay. That'll be a square root of 15i. Square root of 15i, and that's over the negative 6i. So for my second term here, notice you've got an I divided by an I, so now that's going to be the real part over here. And also those two negatives will cancel and be a positive. But we do have to deal with this I in the denominator here. I also notice I could reduce this fraction. So let's go ahead and reduce the fraction first. And in fact, let's write the real part first because we like to put the real number first. So the real part's going to be the square root of 15 over 6. Okay, and the imaginary part is this 3 over negative 6i. Well, it's a negative, right? And we can reduce the 3 and the 6, so it's going to be 1 over 2i. Okay, now we have to deal with this I in the denominator. That's like a square root. It's a square root of negative 1. So we multiply by I, which is the conjugate. You could think of it as the conjugate of I is I. Really, you could put negative I or I. So either of those will work. And we've got this first one stays the same. So in the numerator here, I have now an I. And in the denominator, I have a 2i squared. But a 2i squared is negative 1. So we got to keep going here. Keep bringing this down. So I have minus 2 over negative 1, because that's what I squared actually equals. Now that negative 1 is going to cancel with this negative, or you could just say, well, minus a negative is a positive, all right? So what I really end up here, my real part, I'm cool with my real part, still have square root of 15 over 6. But what's going on over here? Be careful, we want to write it as a plus bi. So you don't see a coefficient in front of that I, but there's really a 1. And so this is really 1/2 I. And you want to write complex numbers so that you could see the real part and the imaginary part. So this is the preferred form if you're dealing with a complex number.